In July 2016, there was a gunfight in southern Kashmir, and a popular militant commander, Burhan Wani, was killed. I was just outside the battlefield, the encounter site, and updating my office, a newspaper in Srinagar, that what's happening. We had no idea that who's inside, but I was filing the story that what's happening at the spot. Uh, I I saw that internet's not working. The internet has been snapped. Then I got a call from office that Burhan Wani has been killed. I said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm just outside the encounter site." They said, "Yeah, get out of there. It may be trouble." By evening, I reached home. Mobile phones were shut. Everything was snapped, and there was no communication. It was after many months is that I thought to watch television, and it was Kashmir was all sort of burning. There were killings. People were out on roads. Next day, I went again to that place to see what's happening. And for that day, I wrote a story. But for 4 days, I could not find an internet connection to file that story to my office. Then finally, I traveled around 20 kilometers and reached district magistrate's office and told them a lie that I'm a student and I have to file a document in a university to get admission. Can you please give me internet access? And thankfully, they gave me the access, and I filed the story for a magazine, for the newspaper, and that was the first report that came out of South Kashmir, ground report that came out of South Kashmir. In 2016, internet was shut for 6 months in Kashmir Valley on prepaid mobile networks. Just take 2 seconds and imagine. You know, when I landed in Delhi airport, from airport to hotel and from hotel reception to this conference hall, nothing seems possible without internet. The taxi, the bookings, everything. Then I went back to, I thought, I just was thinking that what's happening, in Kashmir. Because more than internet ban, there is threat of ban. You never know when the internet will be snapped. And same happened in 2016. I used to write stories, I used to travel for days, and then I had to find a reliable internet connection. Sometimes it was district magistrate's office, sometimes it was a hospital, sometimes it was any other means. There are 3 categories of internet connections, broadly classifying them. One is prepaid mobile internet service, second is postpaid, and then broadband and leased lines. Most of the people in Kashmir use prepaid internet services, prepaid mobile internet services. Then there's postpaid internet services, and then broadband. Whenever anything happens, there's any extraordinary situation, the first casualty is internet. In 2017, there have been 27 shutdowns by now. And from since 2012, there has been 55 total shutdowns. Right now, when I'm speaking here, one part of Kashmir is blacked out of internet. There's a gunfight was there 2 days ago, and now internet is not working. I will tell you that this time, at an average in Kashmir, in a month, there are 4 gunfights between militants and the security forces. And whenever there is this gunfight, the internet is snapped in that area, and that goes unreported. Nobody has to do it. I was just checking the newspapers. Nobody has reported that ban in one part of the valley. So how we are affecting? I will tell you. In education sector, students have not, they now they say we are not reliable on internet. They don't want to be reliable on internet. Nobody takes internet as a reliable source in Kashmir now, because you never know when it will be snapped. There's no prayer warning, there's nothing. In 2016, there was an extraordinary situation. A friend of mine told me that it's like you're giving a person drug, then he's addicted to it, and suddenly you are snapping. You just snap it. What happens that he will be frustrated. In education, as I was telling, most of schools don't have internet access. People can they can study on YouTube, but it gets snapped. So if anybody is preparing for an examination or anything else, he makes sure that he has all the material, textbooks and all that, so that uh, he can prepare. Then e-commerce is not a, it was not major business in Kashmir, but from past 4 years or a couple of years, I can say, it was flourishing because of the online shopping and all that. But after the 2016 ban, most of the e-commerce units have shed their units in peripheries. And there was a report recently carried by a local newspaper in Kashmir. There were 14,000 people were working in e-commerce sector, and 7,000 had lost their job in just 1 year. There's some, I mean, it was not only about the essential commodity, like the essential services on internet. There are people who use internet for, like there are tour operators. Kashmir is, a large part of Kashmir economy comes from the tourism and all that. So once the internet shut, their business is shut. And there's one more thing. Doctors say that it has affected the mental health of the people in Kashmir. Most people who are using the internet are teenagers, they're young people. And when the internet snapped, when internet snapped for 6 months, what will they do for that time? So sometimes they tend to develop mental illnesses, frustrations and all that. And people complain that it's fact that internet shutdowns have caused mental disturbances among the people there. I guess Safina will carry out more. She has more instances.
Akash has briefed you about the internet problems, shutdown problems, which we are facing in Kashmir on the part of journalists and on the part of like tour operators, the education sector. But the interesting part is that health sector too faces the problems. As Akash rightly said, that our youth who are then facing the mental pressures, the depression after the internet gets snapped there. I have a data of MSF, Medicine Sans Frontiers. According to them, we have 1.45% of the population which is of adults in Kashmir, and they include symptoms of mental distress in Kashmir. So, and according to the records, we have only 10 official specialists, mental specialists in Kashmir who are treating this population, the mental stress, the depression patients in Kashmir. But the thing is that recently, when it was 2016, it was a huge 6 months internet shutdown. If I ask you people to keep your phone switch off for an hour, just imagine how many messages you are going to miss and how much you get frustrated. And for 6 months we were in isolation. Our prepaid SIM cards were not working. Internet was banned. Somewhere it was like if a journalist has to file a story, he has to go to some offices. If it worked, because the broadband works there, only the BSNL broadband works there. We don't have there the Airtel broadbands or other private companies who have their broadbands in rest of the states. They don't have there in Kashmir. Only BSNL works there. So you can just imagine how people get frustrated. So we have one of the psychiatrists there, Dr. Maghribi Khan. He had started 2.5 years back. He started online counseling through his Facebook page, Mental Mental Health towards the better mental health. So when it was 2016, he was treating his patients online because he has his patients across the world. People who are from Kashmir, living abroad, living in rest of the country, they contact him through the online page and take counseling, take advice from the doctor. Even he advised them some medicines too. But when he said he was having a case from Dubai, lady he was treating from 9 months, but when it started internet shutdown for 6 months, then again in January 2017 he has to restart her therapy. You can just imagine. And second important thing he said, that if we have some cases of drug addicts in Kashmir, they sometimes feel very shy to come forward to the doctor and reveal their identity. What they use the fake accounts of Facebook or some any other social app, and they contact the doctor for getting counseling for this drug addiction. But once it is shut down, you can just think how painful it is for a doctor as well as for the patients. Second important thing is, and we have a bone and joint hospital in Srinagar. Last year, the fiber wire was cut down because of some rats were inside that room. So when the CT scan machine was not working, there was only one operator who can actually make that machine again working. But he was living in some far area in other district, and the situation was worse. People were not able to come to the hospitals. The staff, the doctors, somehow they were managing to come, but he was from a very far area in South Kashmir, and South was already in volatile situation. So when the doctors and the authorities tried to get in contact to him, his prepaid mobile phone was already closed, because prepaid mobile phones were not working in Kashmir that time. And they put a WhatsApp message, email, that too was already banned in Kashmir. The hospital authorities had to contact to the Delhi office, the head office of that machine, which where they have actually purchased. And they told them, we are sorry, we cannot send anybody to the Kashmir because the situation is worse there. And a lot of people who were injured that time because of the situation in Kashmir, they had to suffer because of that machine. And coming to the part of women, very strangely, as Akash said, we have in a couple of years start the e-commerce business, because we have a lot of unemployment in Kashmir. And government is saying that we are tackling the issues, and we want these youth to come to other sectors like the private. We don't have that much of private sector in Kashmir, but our youth, they are very felt very happy if they have some opportunities to come forward. And in the same way, women have started their own ventures. I have last year reported a story. There is a one lady, her name is Omar Koyum Khan. She was not able to own her own showroom. Then she started selling the online products. And then she gave a name to it, Craft World. When it was internet shutdown, she has took a loan of 3 lakh rupees from JK Bank. And irony is that when it was shut down, internet shutdown, she was not able to sell it through online. She has to pay the installments, the interest to the bank without earning a penny. And second, there is another lady, her name is Ikra. She too started through Instagram, that is called the Tul Pulao with the name. She is selling the handicraft items there. She too faces the losses. And now recently she was telling me that either she has to close down all the products, or she will go for some other private job, because there is no option. She never knows when there is an internet shutdown, she can't sell these products. So that is the one thing. And coming to the part of students who are studying abroad, who are studying in rest of the India, when there is an internet shutdown, they're not able to contact with the people. When there was a last time, there was a situation was such a worse that they were not knowing even their family is all okay, are they fine, because there was no communication that time. That is the thing which we are facing.
After GST implementation, there was protests in Kashmir because they were asking that how will we file the returns, because there will be. Then they were assured that we will provide you some. Yeah. And in 2016 and in 2016, it was a major problem that people were not able to pay their bills. They were not able to file returns and all that. But then there were some negotiations, I guess, with the companies and with government. But it's a big concern in Kashmir right now. Traders are saying and businessmen are saying, how will we file returns? And there's one more issue, it's related to it's related to internet ban. The government is what government is doing. They reduce the internet speed. When they think the situation is not normal, but it's not extraordinary or it's not such a big issue, they just reduce the speed so that people cannot access, cannot share videos. The big threat government or the administration that they say is in Kashmir is that they spread videos online and photographs online. So they just reduce the speed so that people cannot spread videos and all that. That's also a big challenge. But I don't think the question here is, I don't think the reason for internet speed is to what government is saying to stop spreading of rumors. But does that happen? That's a big question. That doesn't happen at all. At least I'm speaking about Kashmir. That doesn't happen. In April there were elections in by-elections in Badgam, Srinagar parliamentary seat, and there was a lot of violence and killings. At that time, internet was there were 8 killings in a single day, and voting percentage was just there's nothing to do with that, but there was a lot of violence that day, and government had shut the internet had shut the internet. And that day, a man was tied to army jeep and he was used as human shield. But internet was shut, the video didn't come out. But later when everything restored, net was restored, everything was all right, that video surfaced and it went viral. So the question is, does it stop the rumors for which it's meant? No, it doesn't. It actually, people get to, they collect the data and then share it. Just what happens is that it may be late by 1 or 2 days, nothing else.
I had a question, for all of you guys. Well, I guess specifically the people who have lived through more than like a month of internet shutdowns. So do you know what happens with the administration? Like, you mentioned something about how they used to talk on WhatsApp. So what happened afterwards? How were they able to communicate? Like, was basic governance happening? And
they went back to their phones. In fact...
Wait, also, part 2, how was the security apparatus? So did the security apparatuses have access to internet? Like you said, you went to the DM's office to file your story, right? So do they have special access that civilians don't?
I classified the internet as there are 3 types of basic internet. There's prepaid mobile internet, postpaid mobile internet, and then broadband and lease line. Common people use mostly prepaid mobile internet, and then officials and the bureaucrats, they use BSNL postpaid networks. The department had provided them, and mostly prepaid mobile services are shut, and the postpaid services that are accept BSNL. BSNL is also shut, but at last stage. And then broadband, it works mostly. When the situation turn is so big, they just reduce speed or ban it for 1 or 2 days. And government is using lease lines. There are lease lines that are provided to specific government offices, and defense is using separate network. Army is using, and the other forces are using separate network that's not linked with the private network. So they cannot use mobile internet, but they can use in offices. Now, basic question is that internet changed because of mobile. The purpose of broadband is restricted to office and houses. You can use in office, but then outside you cannot use in mobile phones. Government is, they also suffer.
Somehow, in April this year, we were blocked 22 social networking sites, and very strangely, the officials in government departments, and even when I was actually roaming around Lal Chowk, the city center of Srinagar. One of the police official was asking a teenage guy, what is this VPN? Can you just download me on my phone? I too want to chat through this WhatsApp. I don't know what's happening in my own district. So you can just imagine that time when it was 22 websites, social networking sites were blocked. The from policeman to a common person, from a teenager to an old man, he too got suffered. So it was not like that only the common people suffer. Sometimes when there are such situations, they too had to face these things. So that's it.
Sometimes when there was, as Safina was talking about, 22 social networking sites were banned. At that time in Kashmir, there was this VPN thing, and even VPN used to bypass the main network and just access it. And even Chief Minister was tweeting, but at that time Twitter was banned. So people were saying Chief Minister has to, bypass it.
My name's Ravi. I'm a journalist as well. In Kashmir, I heard that BSNL was working for mostly government officials and policemen, and so they were able to communicate during several of the bans in 2016. So my question there is, why couldn't regular citizens try and get BSNL SIM cards as well? Was it that hard to do it? Why did they have to stick to Geo or Airtel? And just linked to that, my second question, also in Kashmir, is whether when you had the social media ban on 22 sites, whether new sort of social media networks like Cashbook were very useful for people like you and your friends. How much traction did that get?
Yes, from my part, I'll answer you about BSNL. There's an interesting thing. Whenever some company or any service starts in India, it comes late in Kashmir. See, we don't have a broadband of other private networks working in Kashmir. It's only BSNL. So you can just think, why BSNL? Because BSNL is government service. So all the government officials or the government employees, they do go for a BSNL because there is an ease for them. जो भी billing होता है, that comes in their own offices, in their own rooms. So that is the part. And from the other point of view, why the rest of the people are using these Airtel or some other private networks? The reason is they do provide them a lot of, I think, the cash back offers, some such offers. So people, some common people, prefer to go for these offers rather than BSNL because BSNL is costly for them. So that is one of the reasons why officials, because these BSNL companies go for the government offices, ask them to have their own services. So that is one of the reasons why the government officials, mainly if you come to Kashmir, you'll find maximum government employees and the officials are using the BSNL services. So that is one part. And you'll be very surprised. Last year, I was using a prepaid SIM card. And when it happened, a 6 months ban, and I was out of communication with 101, to whom I am working as a freelance journalist from Kashmir. So that time I had to took a BSNL SIM card, the postpaid one, and I had to travel 2.5 kilometers by foot because there was a curfew and I had to reach to the Lal Chowk to the BSNL head office. So somehow I got some contacts there. Then the person helped me out in getting that BSNL postpaid card. Then only I could make calls to the Bangalore office. Then I did my stories. Otherwise, I was out of contact because my prepaid was not working. There was no internet at all. And I was I'm living 7 kilometers from the city center. So that way you can understand that it was not that much of ease to move out because curfew was there. There were protests outside. Everything was like very risky, very scary. So that is the thing. And on the part of Cashbook, I think Akash can brief you.
Thank you. Let me come to first the BSNL thing. It has a history, I can say. When mobile networks came in Kashmir, the officials were provided BSNL SIM cards by the departments they were working in. BSNL was, I guess, the first operator to be in Kashmir. When 2016 agitation erupted, I had no postpaid BSNL SIM card. That was only working after 4 days. That was working. Then I went to the BSNL office where the SIM cards were provided, and I had to wait in queue for 2 days. There was no internet, and that too, if you wanted a BSNL postpaid SIM card, they would ask you that, are you a government official, are you working in some government department? You will be provided. And I will tell you, interestingly, every official or every person who is using BSNL, he has an alternate number of other company, just to keep that departmental number he uses, and it works in these extraordinary situations. Now, after the things were normal, BSNL was giving, there were so expensive bills and all that. I just had to shut it down. And now if there is similar situation, I will have to again wait for 2 days to see if I can get a SIM card. On Cashbook thing, there were, I will speak on that. There were many attempts by people, because when you are doing nothing, or when there are these extraordinary situations, people, deal with it. People try to deal with it. It's survival, right? And there were these attempts to create own social networking sites, Cashbook. They wanted to make it like Facebook of their own. But unfortunately, a lot of people were not able to use it because it was, poorly built. They were just students who had no big experiences. So out of that inexperience, it didn't work much. But yeah, there were some attempts, and I think if similar things are repeated in future, there might be some more attempts too.
You mentioned that that citizens were trying to look for alternatives to popular social media apps like Facebook. In the same thought, are there also efforts to build community networks? And at the time of shutdowns, are citizens going back to traditional media like radio, or say utilizing things like a missed call or other such mechanisms? If any of you could shed some light on that. Thanks.
When 2016, I will share my personal experience. When I finally got a BSNL postpaid SIM card after many days. When I used to reach my home, because it was all, there were a lot of violence and all that going on. There was no transport. I had to travel on a bike and out of a lot of risks. Then my office people told me that when you will be back home in the evening, just make sure that you make two missed calls. That means you are home. So I used to make 2 missed calls in evening, so they used to know that I'm back home. Just to save I don't get extra bill in the at last of month, and I don't know how I will pay that. To pay my bills, I had to contact a friend in Delhi, and he paid the bills. The paying bills was really, it was because you cannot pay bills online, and then you have to reach to the exchange in the town, and there you will pay.
I'm going to add here, you asked a question about alternate way of communication, yes. And interestingly, whenever there was no mobile phone working there except the postpaid, and internet was already shut down. And whosoever wants to come out of the house for some purchase for the daily lives, or go for somewhere else to look after, or to the doctor, or to the hospital. So nobody was sure whether he will come safely to the home or not. एवरी डे लाइक ऐसा मतलब रूमर्स होता था घर पे कि अगर अर्ली मॉर्निंग कोई हॉस्पिटल के लिए चला गया फॉर अ ट्रीटमेंट, इवन माई टूथ वॉज लाइक बैडली इन अ बैडली शेप, सो आई हैड टू गेट माई ट्रीटमेंट. एंड वंस आई वॉज लिविंग फॉर द हॉस्पिटल, सो माई फैमिली वॉज थिंकिंग कि रास्ते में प्रोटेस्ट तो नहीं हो गया, कहीं स्टोन पेल्टिंग तो नहीं हो गया, कहीं फायरिंग तो नहीं हो गया, इज शी ऑल राइट. एंड समटाइम्स अगर कोई बंदा किसी डिस्टेंस में किसी को देखता था कि ऐसे रूमर्स होते थे कि फ़लानी जगह पे आज तीन डेथ्स हो गई, फ़लानी जगह पे अभी स्टोन पेल्टिंग हो रही है. सो लाउड स्पीकर्स वेर यूज्ड दैट टाइम इन मोहल्ला मस्जिद्स के डोंट पैनिक, एवरीथिंग इज़ ऑल राइट, somebody has come from that side and he assured us that there is nothing at all. But then all the day our minds used to be occupied because of the tension that is our family or our friends safe. So that was the situation. And coming back to I think this is very interesting. As I'm using my prepaid SIM card, I think I spend 500 to 600 rupees a month for my this billing. But once last year I was using the postpaid BSNL, I had to pay 7,000 rupees 2.5 months. Though I make more calls then, because WhatsApp on the other hand was not working, then I had to make calls to the people. In fact, I was in contact with the Akash last year. We used to talk, and it was only possible, he was not able to make me calls because his SIM card was prepaid. Because later, after 3 months, government they did for the prepaid mobiles, the incoming was only allowed and outgoing was banned. So I used to contact to the Akash for a couple of stories. Whenever he used to have some feedback, he was not able to call me because he was having a prepaid SIM card, and I used to make a call to him, look, this is what is happening in South Kashmir and all. So that way you can understand why the common people are going for the private sector networks. The thing is, they offer various offers, various discounts rather than BSNL, because it's a government-based agency. So these are the things why BSNL and the private networks are like not running parallel in our Kashmir. I don't know in the rest of the parts. So that's it. And apart from this, alternative communication was one more thing. Whoso used to visit to the to our relatives or someone else, they used to contact to different people. Like, you are just 1 kilometer away from my aunt's house, just make them sure that I reached yesterday at 6. So that way we used to communicate these things. And about radio, and our females are not the women in Kashmir are not too far from using the internet. They too are very interesting and very actively using. In fact, some of you can find most of the women are using these social networking sites for promoting their cooking activities. And last year when it was banned, so they too felt like they are in an isolation. But then things went on, like you switch on to a normal radio, जो आपने पता नहीं किस में रख दिया था, वापस निकाल के आप यूज़ कर रहे हो. So those things are happening, and happen in fact whenever there is an internet ban. And we don't know, whenever we were in Kashmir, we don't know anytime, anywhere happens an encounter and that area gets blocked with the internet. That is for sure. So you're not sure about what is happening and what will happen. So these things, we are now accompanied by these things.
So, so you had mentioned that there are 3 categories of internet. So this internet shutdown, I understand that has it ever been total that all the categories were shut down?
Yeah.
And
has been.
also for Darjeeling, it was total.
all internet.
And in cases when it is not total shutdown, like some access mechanisms are still available, do the people who still have access to internet sort of form help out people who don't? Does a black market form, or do people help out as part of community? What kind of behaviors evolve when some people have access to internet and others don't?
There's press enclave in Srinagar. It's in Lal Chowk. And while there was internet shutdown, internet ban was prevalent. The newspaper offices, they had this lease line, and they has access to the internet. One day I was going to the office and I saw a lot of youth, young people sitting and facing their mobile phones. They were in queue, sitting there. I was surprised at what's happening, and then I saw that they all have hacked the hotspot of newspapers, and they are using this. This used to happen, in towns and villages. The house that used to have broadband internet service, they used to hack. But yeah, people often, provide help. If there's a broadband connection in a village, they can give access to the other people. But there are issues, people fear for security and all that. And at many places, government offices were turned for the help of students, after a few months, because some students had to submit their forms online to the other universities. So the offices were turned for their help. They could file the forms there.
I want to add here regarding that people help us or not. Very surprisingly, last year when it was shut down and internet shut down and also the curfew, I used to go to the University of Kashmir. So the people in the guest house who are employees there used to treat me like anything. They offer me tea and give me password of that Wi-Fi and ask me, do whatever you have to do first, but don't go for the stories against this university.
And everybody is fed up with this ban. I will say that. Like, I will add that when I first visited deputy commissioner, that district magistrate office, after a few days he got to know that I'm a journalist and for what purpose I'm using it, and he said, it's okay, come use it. He told me once that I only come to office just to access internet. Otherwise, I can do things right back home. I have few, I know few MLAs there. They visited Jammu because after staying for a month there without internet, he said, I'm turning mad. I will visit Jammu so that I can access the internet. So what I'm saying is that everybody is equally fed up, but some people, I don't know from where they think that they can just do things better. They can just undo the violence and all that by shutting the internet. There are few people in power who think so. Otherwise, most of the people are fed up with this ban.
an ex-colleague actually, she was an intern, came to us for 3 weeks when the curfew first began. She stayed with us for 6 months, and she only left in January of 2017, right? When her college reopened. She was a law student, and we heard a lot of the sort of the incidents on the ground as well. I mean, the students' protests particularly. Luckily, I'm glad that she was a force of, trying to push them to make it at least a peaceful protest, because I think the natural assumption is, I'm Bengali, so I'm just going to say cholbena, and that's it. You'll sit and strike out in the streets. But I think it was really important for a curated and a sort of calmer response to these rather horrendous scenarios, because then it's just sort of this vicious cycle that just feeds the entire the beast that is this curfew. And one of the things that we actually heard from her, and I think one of the additional challenges I just want to add here, is that in, I think, March, was it? Yes, March this year, she had to write a full year's worth of exams for which they only had 2 months worth of classes, right? They had to write 1 full year's worth of exams. And this is in Kashmir, the law school, if I'm not mistaken, Kashmir University Law School. So, yeah.
Last year, when there was a 6 months complete shutdown, we used to have community-based these schools in our own darasgahs and the muhallas, and whosoever wants to contribute on their own used to teach to the children in their own community, so that they can actually go for examinations. But from the students' demand, they were demanding that they will not go for examinations. They want that date should be extended, because they haven't read anything and they haven't been to schools for 6 months. But the authorities ignored it, and they went for examination on the particular month, that is October and November. And but luckily the students have already prepared for the examinations in their own community mohallas. That is one way somebody was talking about alternative communication, and this was the alternative way to get the education. So these things happen when you have one road blocked, the other road you search for.
We used alternative communication, which was community mohalla, which was very interesting, because I was thinking 15 years back or whatever time when we didn't have internet, that was the mainstream way of communicating. So perhaps if we are looking at solutions of how we can circumvent this, and this is a provocative idea, but maybe we need to retain our human communication with each other, or what we call the community, which strangely has now become the alternative, because the mainstream is now the internet.
You're rightly saying, when it was the last year internet shutdown and the mobile was already banned, our elders were saying, अच्छा ही हो गया, कम से कम दरबदरी से तो बच गए. एंड ऐसा तो सुनने को मिलता था. मामा जी बोलता था कि मैं अपने भतीजे को जानता ही नहीं था, सिर्फ व्हाट्सएप वो वीडियो कॉल भी थे, अच्छा हुआ शुक्र है कि सामने को देख लिया. सो वन पार्ट यू विल फाइंड द एडवांटेज, बट ऑन अ लार्जर रियलिटी देयर आर डिफिकल्टीज when there are tensions, when the situation is worse and you are not in a communication mode. That time you felt very depressed, very isolated.
I will just add that wherever there is ban on internet, people, they socialize. But the thing is, when the ambulance drivers are not able to correspond with their, it's really pathetic. Then you can't afford that socialization at that cost. And one more thing is, I would like to add at last, is that banning social media doesn't serve its purpose. Its purpose is to, banning internet is to stop spread of wrong information, the rumors, but it just adds up. Why not create an in opposite? If somebody is spreading rumor, why can't administration, use the same internet, same social media to counter that information? They will balance it. I mean, you are just you want to cut flow of information. That will not stop the spread of rumor. Instead, if somebody is spreading rumor, just counter it with the right information. I guess that will work. After working in Kashmir and being on ground and just talking with people, everything is interconnected. Just imagine for 6 months you are doing nothing, right? There is ban on internet. There's no school. There's no college. There's nothing. And then there is winter break. The winter break for 3 months. then there's summer, and now you are being told suddenly start schooling, and you join school, and you just. My point here is the student protests erupted in 2017. The main agitation was in 2016. The student protests are linked with what happened in 2016 because the youth were they were frustrated with what happened with them previous year. Most of the people I talked with, they said that 2016 is unfinished, right? It just ended with abrupt. It was there was abrupt end with the winter, and then the frustration they had of year before, they just disseminated. They just showed it on the streets, and that's what I'm saying. It's counterproductive, and it's leading to one vicious cycle to another. And if the things will go on like this, it will add up. It will just add fire to the fuel.